Hello, vinyl community. I've got one day left before it's time for my beloved vacation, my summer vacation. I can't tell you how much I wait for it. I thought I'd answer a vinyl thread here. The mphsVinylJim's and his lovely wife's June contest, the perfect 10. It says in the description here that if you think you know of a masterpiece that is a perfect 10, with a cool cover, awesome lyrics, and a super groovy musical instrumentation, let us know. So, first I went out to my record shelves and I started picking all of these records that I think, well, if they're not perfect 10s, they are bloody close. So I came out with a pile that was this big with vinyls, and I thought, well, let's that will be a 2-hour video maybe. So then I check it again. Okay, awesome lyrics. Okay, what awesome lyrics? Okay, then I could remove some of them, although I love some of these albums very much. Some of them are a bit instrumental, and some maybe have been shown by so many others. So I managed to get out to a pile like this. So I'm going to show you what I picked. And some of these I may have showed before, and some of these others may have showed too. We'll start with some Swedish or Scandinavian music. First we have the Norwegian singer Anne Brun, who's active mainly in Sweden, with this record from 2008. Changing of the Seasons. I think Anne Brun's records are always very good. She's a very good singer-songwriter with a very personal voice. This also is on clear marble or vinyl. So, fairly recent. Then we have a group that was very popular in the early 80s in Sweden called Aston Reimer's Rivaler. And they made a handful of albums. They were, well, street musicians with they played prog before. They came from the punk movement, from jazz, from folk music. So it was a very varied gang of musicians with accordions, saxophones, trumpets, percussion, electric guitar, and quite very weird mix of music on these albums, and often with very humorous lyrics. This is their most famous album, the one that sold best. I'm not really sure if it's the best, but it's a very good album. It's called Tvål. Another Swedish album, Håke, Visa från Djupvik, from 1969 on Mercury. Håke Franzén, who was a singer in a rock group in Sweden, he was put in prison for not doing his military service, and he met the great arranger Björn Jison Lind there, and they made this album together, Visa från Djupvik. It's a very good album. It's a bit of a forgotten classic, although it started to become interesting for collectors again. Then we have a Swedish singer-songwriter in the French chanteuse style, Barbro Hörberg. This is an album called Med ögonkänsla för grönt, which was a big hit for her in 1973 on the label Frituna. She made 3 albums. Well, she made a couple of children albums first with children music, but she made 3 very good albums. One for Frituna, another one for Philips, and a third one for a small label called Aubergine. All of them have been reissued on Frituna since. But alas, she died just a couple of years after this album was made, much too early from cancer. Very good lyrics. Not maybe the best singer, but very good music and very good lyrics. Then I'm going to be a bit local here, because we talk about the Swedish folk music group that I've talked about before, Norrlåtar. I think I've talked about this album before too, Känslans Partisan, on MNW from 1987. Uh, this is an album that I bought when it was new, and there are a few albums that I listen more to than this one. It's a mix between traditional Swedish and Finnish folk music together with a bit of fusion with drums, synthesizers, tuba, and well, saxophone. It's a very interesting mix, and it's mainly instrumental, but there are some songs with very good lyrics too. And now I come for a record that I know that my record collecting friend Sublime Media will look at with great envy, because I know he wants this, because I bought it on vinyl when it was new. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Murder Ballads from 1996. When I bought this in 1996, I hadn't bought a new LP for 5-6 years or something, so it felt a bit weird to do it, but I actually did it, and I mean, I, like many others who aren't really Nick Cave fans, really appreciated the Where the Wild Roses Grow, with very good song together with Kylie Minogue, and of course a very beautiful video. But the whole album is super great. I'm not really a big Nick Cave fan, but this is something I really like. And over to, well, I could have picked the record that followed this one, but after all, I picked this one. Music from Big Pink by the band. I've talked about the band before. It's one of my absolute favorite bands of all time. Could have picked the Brown album, but I think I showed that in another video, so I picked the music from Big Pink this time, from 1968. Yeah. And I talked a lot about Paul Simon and Graceland. Paul Simon is one of my house gods, but actually my favorite album, one that I think is strongest, that doesn't really contain any weak or less than perfect tracks, is Still Crazy After All These Years from 1975. Especially I Do It For Your Love is one of my absolute favorite tracks, but I think this is, well, Perfect 10 from 1975, CBS. One of the tracks there, he shares the vocal duties with a singer called Phoebe Snow. And Phoebe Snow, who passed away last year, very sad, made a couple of good albums. This is probably my favorite. It looks like Phoebe Snow from 1976. Yeah, from 1976 on CBS as well. Phoebe Snow, very good singer, very good voice, and this is a very good album. Good songwriter. I think I'm quite sure I showed this before. Randy Newman, and when we talk about Perfect Tens, an album that it's perfect altogether from the beginning to the end, we talk about Sail Away from 1972 on Reprise. Yeah, there aren't any weak tracks on this album. Yeah, what about Paul Simon's partner, Art Garfunkel? Well, not really an Art Garfunkel fan, but he's made one album that is very good, and it also has a very cool sleeve, because a cool sleeve was also one of the things that should be a part of a Perfect 10, and it's Breakaway from 1975. Very good selection of songs. He sounds very inspired, and a very good sleeve. Breakaway from 1975 on CBS. And then, before I watched the whole mphsVinylJim video, I had picked up some different albums, and one of those he picked out was this one. Van Morrison, Moondance, that would be his pick. I would agree, because it's a very good album. It doesn't really have any weakness whatsoever. So I'm not picking this just to be able to make sure that I've got a bigger chance of winning this. After all, we're all sharing with each other. But I have to say, I really agree with Jim and the missus here. Okay. Then we have some English music here. Zoot. Zoot Money's Big Roll Band. The album Zoot. at Kluk's Cleek from 1966 on Columbia. I bought this a couple of years ago when I was up in Luleå, and I fell in love with this album right in the beginning when I listened to a couple of tracks at it at my friend Andreas' house. I didn't have any record player up there, so I was able to listen to some at his home. So Zoot Money, Zoot from 1966. Okay, I'm a great fan of Elvis Costello, and there are many different views on Elvis Costello and his music and which era is the most preferable. Most people often talk about the early angry Elvis Costello, and very few, I think, would pick this album as a perfect 10. But I heard this was new when I was 17, 18 years old, and it made such a big impression on me. I'm going to show you the vinyl, vinyl version, although back then I listened to the CD version, but and it's Mighty Like a Rose from 1991, Elvis Costello. Listened to this very much when I was a late teenager, and has been very influenced by it. So I like this very much. I would put this in this pile. Okay. Okay, now we're going to get into the group of the obvious choice, because this is the album that's always mentioned as probably the best album of all time, and I find it very hard to disagree. It's just super. It's Revolver by the Beatles. This is a weird issue. It's released on Apple. It's a German issue, but never mind. It's perfection. Beatles' best album, and they made many good albums. Yeah, well, back to Simon and Garfunkel. Well, of course, they used to cooperate, and one of their albums, I think, was much better than all the others, although most of them were quite good. And it's this one, Bookends, from 1968, released on, well, this is a Canadian issue. Is it CBS or is it well, it's Columbia, but they put black tape over there where it says Columbia, so it's a Canadian issue meant for the European market, imported obviously. I got two. I don't have many twin copies. Most records I only have one copy of, but this I got two. I got a later one pressed in the 80s, and this one that I think is from the time. Okay. Fairly recent discovery was this group. I found it in Solna some month ago, and I showed it in a video. And now I'm listening to it too, and I fell in love with this immediately. It's Mother Earth, Make a Joyful Noise on Mercury. It's from 1969, I think, with one city side and one countryside. I listened to this while I was doing some paperwork, and it made the boring paperwork so much worthwhile. So I would pick this as a perfect 10 as well. Next one is a bit of a compilation, but still, yeah, I shouldn't pick compilations, but I did it anyway. It's great singer-songwriter Ralph McTell, Revisited, and it's on Transatlantic. Early recordings, like from his early albums on Transatlantic, Streets of London, Spiral Staircase, Michael in the Garden, Last Train Arriving, songs like that. Very good. I like this very much. Okay. Oh yeah, this is an album that I had for ages now, and I just love it. I love this artist, and I've been able to find many more of his albums since I moved to Stockholm. It's Jesse Fuller, San Francisco Bay Blues on Good Time Jazz. It's a stereo copy, and it's, I mean, first of all, the title of the song, San Francisco Bay Blues, one of the best songs ever written, and his delivery is so good. And the other songs, is very good too. I mean, it's well recorded, well played by this very unique artist, Jesse Fuller. It's from 1963, I think. Yeah, 63. Okay, back to the group of obvious picks. I decided that I would only pick one album with... I didn't allow myself to pick two albums with one artist. So I really had to think when I was looking at artists that had made several albums. So when it comes to Bob Dylan, I would pick this, Highway 61 Revisited. There are other very good albums too, but this is the one I would pick. It's flawless. Johnny Cash, same problem. There are so many albums I could pick, but then in the end I picked this, Folsom Prison from 1968 on CBS. Okay, some more country style folk music. The Byrds made lots of good albums, but I wonder if this is not my favorite after all. Sweetheart of the Rodeo. This is a later reissue on Edsel. It's not the original issue, but still, never mind. It sounds great, and I love this music. Okay, next album is probably one of the albums I listened to most times during the years. This album was around when I was a little kid in my mother's collection, and I have my own copy now. It's not the same copy. I think I worn out several copies of this. It's Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly. And I've said it many times before, I'm sure I mentioned it in this blog, vlog, whatever, that even, I think the title song, Killing Me Softly, with its songs, is maybe the weakest track on this album, and that says quite a lot. I think it's so good, so good. And I still can listen to this many times, although I've been listening to it more or less, very, very often for almost, 25, 30 years now. So, more. Okay. Over to a bit of a forgotten hero, Erna Franklin, Soul Sister. This is on Brunswick, and it's a very good album, and of course sister of Aretha Franklin, and not as famous and not as successful, but I think Erna Franklin is in her own way a true star, and this is a great album. And I love the sleeve, really. So many colors that it's almost a bit garish and tasteless. Oh yeah, speaking about an album with lots of personality and such great music, this is probably my pick as the best album of the 90s, and a couple of years ago I was happy to find a rather recent vinyl reissue. It's The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. When I heard this the first time in 1998-99, I was flabbergasted. It's so good. It's so good. And I love Lauryn Hill. I wish she would start making some music again. We need her music. Really. Wake up. Okay. Next singer, I could pick several different albums, but I think I'll pick the first one she made. Maybe because the cover is the best cover she made. It's Candy Staton. I'm Just a Prisoner. And who wouldn't like that cover? And her style, her kind of delivery, really so emotional. So, words fail me. Her delivery is so fantastic. She sings as if it's her life that's on stake. She sings for her life. Candy Staton is one of my absolute favorite singers of all time. Oops. Well, pardon the break. I got a phone call from my dear mother. But now I'm done, so we can continue. Last record I talked about was, of course, Candy Staten. Another really great album that is, well, it doesn't have any weak tracks whatsoever. It's Stevie Wonder, Talking Book. He made loads of really great albums in the 70s. This is my favorite, from 1972 on Tamla Motown. And I'm a great Elvis fan, great Elvis collector, been an Elvis fan since, well, as long as I can remember, really. Picking one Elvis album is tricky because the albums are very uneven. But if I have to pick one, and also there are so many of them, there are hundreds of them, but if I have to pick one, well, I think many of you will say, well, quite an obvious choice, but anyway, from Elvis in Memphis from 1969, even if you remove the strongest tracks on this album, it will be a very good album. So there. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to end by picking another album. I don't really think it's a perfect 10, but it's a very good album that I discovered recently, and this artist I discovered recently. It's Justin Townes Earle and his latest album, Nothing's Gonna Change the Way You Feel About Me Now. One reason why I show you this, well, it's a very good album, I recommend it, but also that I think the best song of this album is a song called Memphis in the Rain. So that goes as a greeting to mphsVinylJim and his wife. And by showing you this video, it's a good way to end the video, and hope someone found this somewhat interesting. Bye bye.